Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today I have a very fun, very exciting, and a little bit dense video for you guys this evening because we're going to be talking about exactly what a recompilation project truly is and why it's going to absolutely change gaming moving forward for all of our favorite retro gaming systems. Because on Monday I did a video on Sonic Unleashed Recompiled, taking the Xbox 360 game and recompiling it for a modern Windows environment with a metric crap ton of enhancements. So today we're going to be talking about the toolset that was used, what that's going to mean for Xbox 360 recompilations moving forward, what a recompilation even is, and why again it's going to change everything in gaming in the next 5 to 10 years. Because last year we talked about Majora's Mask recompiled, and that's basically the exact same concept. Obviously a much less impressive game just because it's recompiled from Nintendo 64. Still one of the best games of all time, but just slightly different looking. It just looks like Nintendo 64 without the Vaseline, but something like Sonic Unleashed Recompiled absolutely just shines. Now, what a recompilation is and why this is important moving forward, it is basically a change of the code from the original code over to something that a modern CPU can understand. What Xenon Recomp is doing here, it's taking PowerPC instruction sets and recompiling them to an x86 intrinsic, which would basically mean something that an x86 processor, Intel or AMD, could understand. And that's exactly what's happening on the side of things as well with Nintendo 64. It's taking something like a MIPS instruction set from that CPU and recompiling it to something that would be capable of running on a Windows machine. And trust me, that is no easy feat to accomplish whatsoever, and I want you to understand that recompilation tools are not universal. They do need to be tweaked game by game, so now that we have a tool for Xbox 360 recompilation, that does not mean you can just plug in a game, press a button, and end up with a PC executable. What it does mean is you can have a much better version of the game with a Windows native port with all these quality of life improvements. You can dial this game up to 120 frames per second, 144 frames per second, whatever your monitor and system is capable of, it will run, and that's absolutely incredible to see. And apologies again if you do hear a puppy kind of barking in the background. As I mentioned in Monday's video, we did adopt an Australian Shepherd mix from the kennel as of Saturday, so he is still a little vocal. Just get used to that for the next maybe week or two on some of the voiceovers. But honestly, back to recompilations, this is just absolutely staggering, and even though it doesn't fully explain it, the best way to think about it if you don't have any sort of engineering background is real-time voice translation. Think about translating Japanese into English and English into Japanese in real time. They aren't instruction sets, but they are two different bits of information that have the same meaning within them, but you can't understand Japanese, a Japanese person can't understand English, you have to translate in real time. And that's basically what's happening here. It's taking all of the PowerPC functions, instruction sets, everything that would be in the PowerPC registers, and it is translating those or recompiling them in real time to code that a modern processor, something like your Intel or AMD in your system right now, can understand. Think of it this way: if PowerPC had the following instructions, A, B, C, and D, those would be specific to PowerPC. Now, it has a lot more instructions than that. I am definitely reducing them. And if you move over to an x86 instruction set, maybe it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4 to match A, B, C, and D, because even though they do have different instructions and they are different architectures, there is a lot of shared technology between all of them. So you'll see here, if you did a real-time recompilation, A would become 1, B would become 2, C would become 3, and D would become 4, and then your modern x86 processor would be able to understand that instruction set and process it, and you just get to play Sonic Unleashed. It's the exact same thing we are seeing with Project R recompiling San Francisco Rush from the arcade original to PC, but again, that isn't PowerPC, it's a MIPS instruction set. There's different instruction sets out there in the world. You have PowerPC, you have x86, you have ARM, there's many others, but those are primarily the three that you're going to encounter on any given day. But when I say this is going to absolutely change video games moving forward, I 100% mean it. This is not software emulation, it is not FPGA recreation, it's basically porting the game to a new platform with graphical enhancements, quality of life improvements, and everything else that makes games feel like they were just released versus being older games. And you're going to see a lot more of these in the next 5 to 10 years, I can absolutely guarantee it, and it is all because of that recompilation. So when you think of a recomp, just think of a translation layer, for lack of a better term. If I explain this as deep as it got, it would be a little bit confusing, but I'm trying to give you guys a top level understanding of this. Additionally, this recomp tool is going to change the endianness of all of the different information going in. Endianness is just describing the order of how data is seen. It's a reversing of an order depending on which endianness you're looking at. The best way to show you that is just with a little bit of binary code that means absolutely nothing. A little endian would appear in one way, big endian appears in another way. I'm mostly familiar with it from the 3DO M2 and Konami M2 because the security response to get those games swapped requires a byte swapped order. So you switch the endianness and you get back the same response just in a different direction. So think of it like that. It just changes the direction of that data. And this is something we saw in the Goemon recompilation as well. 16:9 support, much better graphics, and it's recompiling the Nintendo 64 code to run on that modern platform. Now think of every single Nintendo 64 game in the North American, Japanese, and PAL library had a recompilation for it. That would mean that you could play every single Nintendo 64 game ever made looking like this and not like the original Nintendo 64. That's definitely a future everyone would love to see, and it is one that we're probably going to be seeing in the next 5 to 10 years. Additionally, this is going to include on the Xbox side of things jump tables, which is basically jumping around in instructions and in the processing so that everything would be coming in the order in which it's expected. At least that is how I understand it, because again, this is absolutely dense. But what this is doing, it's taking every single bit of code, instruction set, memory address, call to the GPU from the Xbox 360, which uses a PowerPC instruction set with its own GPU, and it is translating it over to a Windows executable. Think about if you took a game on PC and you went and played the Mac version. That is a port. It is ported the code over because Intel obviously has their own silicon at this point in time. When you play them, they're basically one-to-one if the port is good, because everything has been changed over for that one computer to be able to run that game, or that one operating system or one instruction set on the CPU. That's what you're seeing with Sonic Unleashed right now. It is recompiling every little bit of code from the Xbox 360, and it is real-time porting it to Windows. And that's why you have all these enhancements as well. You can add new features, because when you're porting a game, you can improve it if the system is more powerful. You can add in options that the previous system didn't have, and just basically make a completely better version of a game you know, love, and remember. If there's one thing that is going to be a constant, is that fans, if they want to do these things, are absolutely going to find a way. Because Sonic Unleashed here, clearly they didn't just pick this game because they wanted to try to do it. They are clearly fans of the franchise as far as Sonic is concerned, and they decided to give us a better version of a game that we all know, love, and remember from the Xbox 360 era. Or imagine a situation where something like Burnout Revenge here could work under recompilation as well. This is via Xbox 360 emulation, and while it is great, emulation cannot add any new features to the game. Sure, some modifications can be done to the code, but otherwise, the feature set and options menu in something like Burnout Revenge is going to be the same whether you play it on real 360 hardware or whether you play it on a recompilation project. But imagine this in 120 frames per second. How awesome would that be to have something like one of the best arcade racing games ever made running on recompilation? And I just love how many options can be added on all of these recompilation projects. It's not just the original option menu from the original game. You have so many different features, including how loading screens appear, the time of day transitions here, all of the different inputs and camera options. Basically, you can add in whatever feature you want over top the base game when you do something like a recompilation project. And I love that you even have both PlayStation and Xbox icons in there. And just being able to go in, change the aspect ratio, change the resolution scale, go ahead and dial up or down the frame rate. It's just 100% outstanding. And that's why, again, this is going to be the future of something like quote-unquote emulation and software preservation, because even if a recompilation is in no way, shape, or form emulation, what it is doing is preserving games and allowing a modern audience to play them in ways they never thought they could, and that's exactly what emulation does. The technology here is just completely different, but honestly it is 100% going to be exactly what people are going to be doing and playing going forward, and I can't wait to see it. And honestly, I'm sure a lot of you are going to go down below and yell clickbait, because that's what people love to do for some strange reason when I say that the entire gaming landscape is going to be changing. Take my word for it, these projects aren't going to come out quickly, they do take time, but basically now that we have a software emulation solution for pretty much every platform under the sun, and FPGA cores for the rest of them, honestly this is where video games are going to be moving forward into the future. Because as good as something like Dolphin is, it is software emulation, and sure, we're talking about Vulkan versus DirectX versus Direct Shader shaders on something like the GameCube, and this is absolutely incredible. It works well, it runs fast, but imagine being able to do this in a recompilation project, adding in even more options to something like Super Mario Sunshine. It is just an exciting future as far as video games is concerned, and recompilation is 100% going to be leading the way forward, because right now I definitely drag the frame rate here, but if it was recompiled, it would be a lot better, and that's exactly what you're seeing with something like Sonic here. It is completely recompiled. It feels like a brand new game. There's tons of quality of life improvements. Now imagine every single Xbox 360 game out there having the same treatment. Yes, again, it is going to take some time, but that is where the gaming landscape is going to move, and you can recompile code on basically anything. We have San Francisco Rush recompiled from the arcade. We have something like Majora's Mask recompiled from Nintendo 64. We have tools now to recompile Xbox 360 games, and because it is based on the same instruction set as PlayStation 3, you know full well all the knowledge gleaned from this project is going to inform PlayStation 3 recompilations going forward. So in the next 5 to 10 years, expect to be playing a lot more recompilations and expect to have a lot more fun doing it, because trust me, this is going to be a seismic landscape shift as far as retro games are concerned. But we're done. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.